Hey folks, David Stewart here. I'm going to talk a little bit about Captain Marvel, and I apologize in advance if this video is a little bit more rambling or indirect compared to my usual videos. I'm going to try to stick to the main point, which is think like a marketer, and what does marketing reveal about what a company thinks about its product? These are things that have come into my mind as I've seen a lot of the press surrounding Captain Marvel. Now, I'm recording this video very early Tuesday morning, which means that I'm recording this ahead of the release of the movie on Thursday. I don't know how it will be received by critics, and I don't know how it will be received by audiences or how the box office is going to do. But based on some of the things that I've seen in the press, I have an idea of what the company thinks about this movie. And I want to talk about a lot of those little details. So first of all, let me just say that Captain Marvel is not a character that I have any particular interest in. The Captain Marvel that I grew up with was male. The Captain Marvel that my dad grew up with was published by DC, which is now called Shazam, and was also male. And when I was growing up, Captain Marvel was considered like a third-tier hero. I can't think of anyone that, when I was most interested in superhero comics, would think that Captain Marvel would be made into a major Hollywood movie. But anyway, this is one, and now Captain Marvel's female, and so that by itself is driving a lot of attention towards this movie, and I think a lot of that attention is artificial. Most of the press that I've seen surrounding this movie is focused on the idea that Captain Marvel is female. And the actress who plays Captain Marvel, Brie Larson, I see basically every other day stories about her saying something about how this character expresses some idea. It's an expression of feminism for her. And these things get picked up, they get kind of echoed through the left-wing press. And then that's created its own little sets of fan backlash, as most of the modern feminist messaging tends to be rather anti-male. So saying this is going to be, this is not a movie for males or something, or this is a movie for women, or whatever it's going to be. The messaging, it's pretty standard. I don't need to go too deep into it for you guys to get the idea. But from that core, that expresses to me, or that communicates to me, certain things about what the company actually thinks about its product. So I said that marketing reveals what the company thinks about its product. It's not just a way to inform consumers, but marketing really tells you what the company wants you to focus on in a product. And I'll make an analogy with cars. So if you're looking at an advertisement for a car, what features is it promoting? Well, it's promoting features that it thinks certain people really care about. So if you see an ad for like a Prius, it's gonna promote that it's good for the environment and that it's high gas mileage, meaning you get a lot of you get to go very far on a very small amount of gas. Whereas if you compare an advertising campaign of that to, say, a Mercedes-Benz, the Mercedes doesn't ever mention gas mileage in most cases. What it mentions is all the things that people associate with a luxury car. And if you were to put a Toyota and a Mercedes next to each other, they might have all the same luxury features, but you're trying to sell a different product to different people. So you're trying to get them to focus on the things that you want them to focus on. So if you never mention the gas mileage, what that says to you is that the gas mileage is probably pretty poor. And it also says to you that you don't think the audience that you're advertising to really should care about the gas mileage. Indeed, most people who are buying like a V8, a very fast kind of car, or a large sedan like a Mercedes, their first concern is probably not gas mileage. Whereas somebody who, and in fact, if you buy a Prius, it's not terribly less expensive than a lot of Benzes, but somebody who is buying a Prius is buying it because of the gas mileage. That's the thing they focus on. And the other things that they wouldn't focus on, is like the toxicity of the batteries, for instance, or something like that. They're not going to talk about that. They don't want you to focus on it. So whatever a company avoids talking about tends to be one of the things that they're going to feel is either not important about their product, or they really don't want consumers to think about. And then there's a third kind of car, which is, say, a Lamborghini or a Ferrari. You think of like a supercar, right? I've never seen an ad for a Lamborghini, And the only ad I've seen for a Ferrari was a billboard for a Ferrari dealership in LA, right? Just telling you where the physical location where you could go buy Ferraris was. Or I think I saw one in Las Vegas too, so maybe two. They don't need to advertise on TV because the product itself requires no advertising. The product itself has a set of kind of cultural attachments that don't require you to do any advertising. And I'll try to draw some connections between these analogies here, but when you look at Captain Marvel has actually been positioned in a way that should maximize its financial success. And I think it was probably on purpose from the folks at Disney and Marvel Studios, the decision to put it out in March when you have the next Avengers movie coming very, very soon, basically a couple weeks away. So you're only going to get a couple weeks of Captain Marvel before Avengers lands. And that's kind of a timing thing to get people, hey, you saw you saw one of these MCU movies and it's going to prime you to see the conclusion of the Thanos conflict, right? But that Avengers movie is kind of like the Ferrari. I haven't really seen any ads for this Avengers 2. And now, granted, I don't watch trailers and I don't watch TV, so I don't see any movie trailers, but I go to the movies and there's like an Avengers 2 poster, but like all the other stuff is bigger and more prominent because it needs your attention, right? Or the ads on websites. I haven't seen any Avengers 2 ads. It's like a Ferrari, like it's already a cultural event at this point based on everything they've done in the past. They don't really need to be shoving in your face that Avengers 2 is coming. They just need to let you know, hey, it's coming down the pipe. Get ready to buy a ticket and see the conclusion. We even split the last movie into two and left you with a really bad feeling, so you're going to want to come back and see this second movie. With this movie, Captain Marvel, what they are focusing on in terms of press, right, and marketing includes press to me. What they tend to be focusing on is the politics, right? The feminist messaging. Now, if I go see this movie and there's very little feminist messaging, or the feminist messaging is very mild, or it's just a standard MCU movie, I'll let you know that. But that would betray a little bit of what their discussion happens to be about. But one of the things that they don't discuss is anything having to do with the story or something special about production. You notice some of the things, like if you're watching some extra content leading up to Guardians of the Galaxy 2 coming out, tends to be a lot of the cast talking about how much they enjoyed working on the film and the other cast members and what they think about their character. In this case, it tends to be really focused around this political messaging. And so that says to me, if you're asking people to focus their attention on one thing, then you really don't want them to focus their attention on the other things. So the things like story, characters, maybe even effects, the general effect of the movie and how it's going to relate to fans, that stuff may be weak in the movie. So the signal that I'm getting is that the movie, the studio is not hyper confident with the movie. We've had 9 months since the last MCU movie, which is Ant-Man and the Wasp, and almost 12 months since the last Avengers movie, right? The last big movie. So a 9-month gap is the longest gap that we've seen in the MCU for like almost a decade now. There's been 2 to 3 movies every single year, usually 3 movies. And so you see them about every 4 months. There's a movie that came out, right? We had we had a movie every 2 months leading up to that last Avengers movie that came out. Avengers, the first part of the Avengers, maybe conclusion, Avengers 3, and this new one will be Avengers 4. And in this case, we've had 9 months. So in that 9-month drought, people are supposedly going to be really hungry for another MCU movie. The last one that they had wasn't even a top tier hero, there's Ant-Man and the Wasp, and not that there's anything wrong with Ant-Man and the Wasp, but it's not like an Iron Man movie, it's not a Spider-Man movie, it's not a Captain America movie, it's kind of an off character, right? So 9 months leading up to this, and the previous one was also not like a mainline Thor kind of character to show in the movie. So that to me says that they're really priming people to want to see this movie. They also put in that teaser at the end of Avengers that Captain Marvel will have some important thing to do in the next Avengers movie. So they've really completely set this movie up for as much success as the MCU as a unit can deliver. And what they're not talking about is the story. And what they're not talking about is the characters, and what they're not talking about is all the stuff that all the other movies are talking about. Instead, they're talking about some kind of political messaging. Now, even Black Panther, with all of the political messaging surrounding that, all that I heard from it, besides the political messaging, was stuff that had to do with the story, right? And that movie turned out to be okay. It wasn't as good as some people thought it was, but it certainly wasn't as bad as other people thought it was. It was a competently well-made movie, and maybe this one will be as well. But I certainly am beginning to think that the studio does not have as much confidence in it either. Now, part of this, too, is that if you allow people to really focus on this political discussion, you basically have a narrative that you can run with, and the press is going to run with, depending on what happens. So there's no way that Monday, if this movie flops or it does well, there's no way that anyone's coming out of it with anything other than a political spin on the narrative. There's nothing that will come out of this that is not political. So if this movie does well, then what it's going to say, what you're going to see on Monday and Tuesday is, however they're going to spin it, the best opening for a female-led superhero movie, which there's only been really one other, which was Wonder Woman, at least in recent memory. So if it beats Wonder Woman, then they can just say that it's the best one. Or, they could say that like it exceeds expectations, even if it just, barely does okay. As long as it doesn't seem like it's flopping, then you're doing okay. Now, if it flops, then you just say, a concerted effort by alt-right trolls on Twitter sabotaged an otherwise good movie known as Captain Marvel. And I guarantee you the press is going to come out and give lots of good reviews to this movie, because they positively review every movie from Disney. You don't get negative reviews in the mainline press on Disney movies. They just don't happen. You only get possibly negative reviews from other studios, never from Disney. That's something that I've picked up on, right? And as an independent guy who just kind of gives my opinion, sometimes Disney movies suck and sometimes they're good, but nobody bats 100%, right? Nobody bats 1,000. Everybody's going to have some stinkers here and there, no matter how good you're doing it. Even if you're super competent, you're going to end up making a bad movie eventually, or you're going to make one that just, you didn't hit the market right. It's not bad as much as it just doesn't appeal to people, right? That tends to be what tends to happen, right? So what I think will happen Monday is that you'll either say, hey, it's been sabotaged by the evil alt-right trolls on Twitter telling people to go see Alita Battle Angel instead of seeing Captain Marvel. Or they're going to be like, it's a triumph despite the best efforts of the evil alt-right trolls. So there's no way that you're going to get out of this without some sort of political spin on it. Or, if the predominantly male fan base doesn't come out to see the movie, then it's because they're misogynist, not because Captain Marvel, at least, if you're in my generation, if you're in your 30s, Captain Marvel was like a crap tier throwaway character in the 80s and 90s, not a character that I ever would have thought see make a movie or ever desired one. I remember when they made Nick Cage made a Ghost Rider movie, and I was like, oh, that's going to be sweet, right? Ghost Rider is higher tier than Captain Marvel was, right? Besides him being male. So no matter what happens, there's going to be a political spin to this. And I can tell you as a movie reviewer, I know that there's no way that I can have an opinion on this without upsetting people. And I learned that from Black Panther, because I gave Black Panther a positive review. And somehow there were people that went and saw Black Panther opening night, like I did, and came on my video to hear me crap on it because they really wanted me to, and I didn't. I gave a positive analysis of it. And thought that I was being paid off by Disney, right? Despite the fact that I routinely crap on Disney movies. People don't think that I can be honest. So if I go see this movie and it's good, you can trust me to say that if I think it's good, or I'm going to talk about all the positive aspects of it, even if I give it a negative review. And you can also trust me that if I'm going to want to crap on this movie, it's because it's crap or because I find it really bad. But if I do, then that gets all the hate trolls on me, right? When I gave negative reviews of the last two Star Wars movies, it's just it attracts people that are upset. There's a lot of people that have a psychic connection to movies that they like, and so they'll come on the channel and in some cases make threats, but in most cases just try to derail every conversation and throw poopy head insults at everyone because somebody doesn't like the same movie that they like. So it's inevitable. Like there's no way that I'm going to be able to produce a review in this politically charged setup that's not going to upset a bunch of people. So I'll do it, and if I upset people, then I understand that that's just like the consequence of giving out reviews and giving out analysis for people, is that some people are going to disagree with me and some people are going to hate me for saying things that they don't agree with, or think that I'm evil or bad for not having the same opinion as them. So I look at this, it's like it's there's like a no-win situation for anyone that's wanting certain outcomes with this movie that are negative in any way, right? I think based on the way that the production staff, including Brie Larson, have conducted themselves over the last month or two, I wouldn't recommend spending your dollar on the movie unless you know it's going to be a good movie. And I know a lot of people want it to fail for that reason because of the messaging. But if it does, then it's going to end up being spun that the evil alt-right trolls sabotaged it. Now, right now on Twitter, there's a lot of people saying go see Alita: Battle Angel instead of seeing Captain Marvel. I can tell you that Alita is definitely a movie worth seeing. It's one of the best produced movies I've seen. You can check out my reviews on it. For sure, my opinion on that one. And I think it's okay to not see a movie opening weekend. Some people have like a fear of missing out with a movie. I don't think that you need to worry about that. You can always wait a week and see if it sucks. And if it sucks, then you can just wait for it to come out on video or just not see it. I do not believe that there will be anything in Captain Marvel that you need to see in order to understand Avengers, but I will let you know after I see the movie, and that's also important. So lots of people think that they have to go see this movie in order to have the proper setup for the next Avengers movie. All that's by design. The gap, all that's by design. And if this movie was really strong on its own, you would have been able to put it out in December instead of the missing Star Wars. There's no Star Wars movie in December because they want to do Star Wars movies in December now, I guess. But they could have put it out in December, and if it was good, it would have done really, really well in December. There's lots of opportunities to have good box office in December. Instead, they wait until March, which is not a really strong month. They're basically setting it up so that it can succeed as much as it can based on the strength of everything surrounding it. And if it doesn't succeed, they have easy outs. And that says to me that they really don't have a lot of confidence in the movie. And that's really my big point for this rambling video. So leave me your thoughts down below as to what you think. And I will conclude this by saying one of the things you have to remember with this little meme that I made here. One of the things you got to remember is that the people who make money for the studio or for Marvel as a comic company too are not necessarily the broadest audience. There's that fat tail and long tail thing that I talked about, or I should say there's a spike in the tail when I talk about distribution or like the Pareto distribution, a power curve. The people who make the most money for the studio are going to be the people who buy the merchandise, who buy the comics, who go see the movie, maybe go see it several times, bring their family to see it. And if you are saying things which isolate that core demographic, which is predominantly male, I believe, for Marvel films, then you are not setting yourself up for success. Even if you sell a lot of tickets or a lot of people go see your movie the first weekend, that may end up not being a success overall when people don't buy the toys, they don't buy the merchandise, they don't buy stuff like that. That's something that I think we all have to keep in mind. And that's something that Disney has done really well with Marvel thus far. Like Marvel has been run as a studio really well thus far as appealing to both a really broad demographic, like anyone can go into a Marvel movie and enjoy it is what it's like, but it also really hits that that long tail, the privileged few fans who spend a lot of money on what they want. That's something that we have to keep in mind. So if you are trading your long tail for more spike or for any other part of that distribution, you're probably doing yourself a disservice. We could talk about that maybe with like the comics industry in general some other time. Other people have done much better analysis of it, but basically, if your comic industry is not catering and not really wanting to maintain that long tail, the fans who are willing to buy all the comics, then you are probably hurting yourself in the long run, even if you ship a few more copies of an issue 1 somewhere. Okay, so that's all about all I have to say about that. I appreciate you guys watching, and let me know your thoughts down below, and I'll see you next time. Make sure you are on my mailing list for updates with the new mini book that's coming out, which is called Crown of Sight. I will have some audio stuff up for that on the channel, so you can wait till then if you want to get a sample of it. It takes about 2 hours to read the book, about the same amount of time as watching a movie, so I'm hopeful that people will be willing to trade 99 cents for that experience and support me a little bit in the channel. So have a great one, and I'll see you next time.